Hello and welcome to another Why the Long Face shortcut. We've got to put a warning on this one, mate.
Folks, it's Sigmund Freud, right? So there's going to be reference to masturbation, right?
Yes, and penises.
And all sorts of sexual stuff, because that was his bag, right?
I suppose it's partially not our
So this
fault.
is prior warning.
Yeah, really do not let your kids listen to this one. I'm sort of embarrassed about it, but when I listened to it, I did have a bit of a giggle. We thought no podcast on mental health would be complete without at least talking about the mumbo jumbo.
The godfather of psychoanalysis, Mr. Sigmund
Freud. Is he a hero of yours, or is he like an anti-hero of yours? That's what I'm thinking.
Both.
It must have been, at the time, absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, discovering the unconscious. Bloody hell.
It's a good beard, but comb over, and a cigar, which you're going to tell me later, he thought might have been a substitute for his cock.
For his own masturbatory obsessions.
It's already funny.
There's definitely a feature film in it. I can't believe it hasn't been done.
And it's a comedy, isn't it, with Woody Allen or Ben Stiller?
Well, it wouldn't be Woody Allen anymore, I don't think.
Sigmund Shlomo Freud. So good
What?
Point. Yes, I shit you not.
Shlomo?
Shlomo was his middle name. So Freud, you find him funny, and I do quite, because you have this image, don't you, of the German. Let us talk about your father. Ah, yes, it is all about masturbation and the fact that you want to fuck your mother.
I think he was also very neurotic himself, and constantly he was the subject of his own analysis most of the time.
Brilliant.
Yes, my cigar. I'm worried that it is a replacement for my early masturbatory tendencies.
As if anybody didn't have masturbatory tendencies. I know you do.
Yeah, I think it's more the fact that his father threatened to chop off his little Willie.
His little Willie.
Little Ziggy, I will cut off your Johnson if you don't stop playing with it.
He's very unlikely to call it his Johnson, which is an American aphorism.
I know, I like that.
It's probably something different. Your Johann. I will cut off your Johann if you don't stop schmiggling the mustard. If you don't stop Wankenhausen. This is Sigmund. This is too much Wankenhausen. I will cut off your little Johann, is my impression of Sigmund Freud Sr.
As a young medical student, he dissected hundreds of eels.
Because they looked like the penis.
In an unsuccessful attempt to locate their reproductive organs.
Right, let's unpick this, right? So
why is he looking for their reproductive organs?
Exactly, that's the first thing.
I mean, no wonder he came up with a great theory about the unconscious id, right?
Was this during university? It was like the other guys were like doing things like, I want to work out how a sheep's heart works. I would like to know, Professor, could you supply me with 300 eels, please? Why do you need this? I would like to find their cock and also their balls. And he got it past them, and they went, Freud, that's genius. No one's ever found the cock balls or la of the eel. You're on.
You're on. Ultimately,
it turned out to be a fruitless exercise.
I failed to publish on the topic. He then turned his attention to a new exciting anesthetic drug.
The Bolivian marching powder.
But unfortunately, cocaine turned out to be dangerous and addictive, and Freud had to stop advocating its medical use.
What was he using
according
it for
to
in
the
the
Book
first
of
place?
Life? Pardon?
What was he using the Charlie for?
So I could dissect more eels.
My eel. It was the University of Vienna. In 1881 he graduated, because it was very well known for eccentric experiments, the University of Vienna, around that time. The 1880s.
Mainly because Sigmund Freud was there, presumably. Anyway.
I think psychoanalysis is all to do with understanding how your brain works, how your mind works, how you make decisions based on stuff that happened very early in your life.
Right.
And I think it's lost a bit of credibility over the last half century, except apparently in Germany. So I think a lot of things that happen in your life can establish neuroses, etc., etc., etc. But it goes a little bit too far in the case of Sigmund and his mates, his bloody mates.
Well, I think a lot of it is best understood as a sort of metaphor for how we transition from childhood into adulthood, right? Because when we're children, we are dictated entirely by this pleasure principle, which is, I want more milk off my mummy's breast whenever I want it, right? I'm absolutely going to get that milky goodness. And I'm going to masturbate whenever I want. And
you missed out a lot there, haven't you, between milky goodness and masturbation.
But he was the first to highlight that actually infants, babies even masturbate. But it was very shocking at the time. It was a very, I mean, it still is quite difficult, isn't it? To talk about children being sexual beings, infants and toddlers.
Yes.
And onwards. So it was kind of groundbreaking, I guess, but you could argue that there was a little bit too much kind of obsessing about it, probably because of his own masturbatory
Hobby.
So anyway, you have this oral phase, this anal phase, and this phallic phase, but they're all easy to ridicule. But I suppose they represent different stages at which you try to move from the pleasure principle to the reality principle. The pleasure principle is primal desires that they dictate everything. Your desire for food and for sex and evacuation through your bowels.
So the phases that you talked about, the oral one, what did you call them?
Oral, anal, phallic.
In that order.
Yeah.
So the oral one is all to do with I grab it, I suck it.
Yeah. It's like, oh, where's mummy's breast gone? Right. Is mummy cruel, or has she done it in a way that I don't think she's cruel? So I'm not going to have all sorts of problems later.
This sounds like
hating women and stuff.
Nonsense.
Well, and then comes the anal phase, more commonly known as potty training.
So.
Where we face the challenges of defecation.
Haven't we already faced them in the nappy phase?
No, the nappy phase, you can just shit to your own delight. Right?
Oh, I see. You mean
that's the point.
Controlled defecation.
You have to start getting socialised. So all sorts of things can allegedly go wrong at this stage. You know, if your parents are too strict with it, you might become overly obsessed with cleanliness as an adult.
And that's what we call
obsessive compulsive disorder.
Oh, fuck! I thought that was anal retentivity.
Yeah, or anally retentive in common parlance. Yes.
No F wording way.
And parsimony, like being careful with your money, is all. Oh God, he's a bit anal. Obsessive compulsive disorder is not correlated with it in every case with a history of harsh potty training. I mean, it's just nonsense.
Well, I did hear, in all seriousness, that he based most of his theories on him and his children, and there were 6 of them, right? So that's a very small.
Yeah, and a small subsection of middle-class Jewish society in Austria.
Related to each other in the same family, given the same parenting. And
next comes with the phallic phase.
Yes.
Which guess when the phallic phase ends?
51.
6 years
Whoa.
old.
And
seems quite young, doesn't it? We have genital longings and impossible.
Or in my case, long genitals.
Impossible.
No?
Good.
You having that?
I'll give you that.
Thank you.
That's funny, man. That's fine.
Oh,
impossible sexual wishes.
Nope. I fulfilled every single one of my.
Really?
My desires. Yeah.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah, I'm a very simple man.
Well, because you didn't have sex with your sisters.
Ooh, God.
No, but apparently that's, we've got all sorts of incestuous impulses, all sorts of grimness going on.
Not with my sisters.
And we can't just ignore them and repress them because they'll come out in different ways. Little children are sexual. They have sexual feelings. They get erections. They masturbate. Ladies don't get erections.
Do they masturbate though?
Yeah.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
I think this is where it all became. You got the Oedipus then coming in and all that stuff, because you're predisposed to being in love with one parent and hating the other. Yeah. Unconsciously.
So is that true of everybody, or just people with the complex?
It's true of everybody. You go through a phase when you come out of it, or not.
Wow. I remember I was quite close to my mother, but I think that was just because I was a bit shy and a bit, clingy. But I don't think it reflected badly on my father, who I thought was all right, a bit strict, you know what I mean?
But you'll always have another life, so you'll always feel a little bit let down at some point.
Ah, is that the idea? Because I've never...
Yes, you'll probably have a relationship, usually with your dad, that you're in competition with.
Ah, and I guess you're saying the fact that I didn't feel that doesn't mean to say it wasn't happening in my subconscious.
Yes, because these are all unconscious feelings. Yeah, you'd probably have felt fiercely jealous of your father.
Right, no, but I don't remember it. But are you saying it's a subconscious feeling?
Yeah.
But I didn't really.
Anyway, so you can be left feeling kind of. I think there is an inevitable stage of frustration and abandonment, but which if your parents are gentle and cajole you through it gently in a nice, appropriate way, then you're fine. and you end up with a balanced view of, which is that your mum can love you and your dad at the same time, rather than just one or the other.
What about your other siblings, which she clearly showed favouritism to? So would it always be the boy who wants to have sex with his mum and the girl wants to have sex with his daddy? Or what if they're gay? What if a child is gay?
I presume you'd have the same issue with your dad if you're a boy, but it wouldn't matter, actually. It would still work, that same dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. So that's an interesting point. Does sexuality in terms of homosexuality versus heterosexuality, does that happen at this infantile stage then in your world, you pervert?
Are you talking to me or Sigmund?
I'm talking to Sigmund through you. You're like Sigmund's representative on Earth, like the Pope.
I'm not sure I'm very comfortable with that. But it's all about fusing sex and love, or trying to fuse them. And in fact, it never stops being difficult. That is an adult. So, which is okay, actually, to accept that, isn't it? But it's all about various ways of trying to adjust the difficulties of reality, as opposed to what our primal urges say should happen.
So there's a connection here between what we've been talking about before, I think, and that is what we're making fun a little bit of psychotherapy. But you just said the connection of what is real.
We are
what you think. Yeah. And that was similar to what you're talking about regard CBT, which was like processes that happen in the brain for whatever reason, right? There might be down to what happened in a child or whatever, but realizing that they're abnormal is the wrong word. Realizing that they're not correct or they're not helpful, and training yourself to have more helpful ways of viewing.
Yeah, adult life requires us to do that, because the people who we regard as childish and emotionally immature think they can get satisfy their primal urges all the time.
And often they smell like poo-poo.
They might just do a big poo on you.
The immature people, yeah.
So when he interpreted dreams and Freudian slips, they're both a kind of window into that forbidden rage of primal instincts, which is the id, and how it's really frustrated. It sort of wants to have sex with people. So people it shouldn't have sex with, like the girl the woman next door, or whatever, when you're married, or whatever it is. Jokes make possible also the satisfaction of an instinct, whether lustful or hostile. I don't know. But definitely the use of humour is helpful. So there's a lot in there. I think when you take Little Hands and Penis Envy and all that slightly more kind of stuff that's specific to Freud's own life out of it, my God, he made a huge contribution to understanding how difficult it is to be a human being. And that's really important.
So you're a fan or not?
I'm a fan of his realization in his later works of the structural nature of the personality, made up of the superego, the ego, and the id. There were many refinements of that model later, but they make sense. So the id is that childish, I must have milk whenever I want it, and I must be able to masturbate whenever I want, all that stuff. That's always there. That's your primal drives. Then you have your superego, which is how you're expected to behave in society. When you defer gratification, the immediate desire for gratification, in the hope that you'll get something more sustainable, perhaps. As soon as you see a woman you find attractive, you don't immediately molest her.
What?
You take your time to... You might even take her for dinner or something.
When does the molestation happen?
And the point is, you don't molest her. No.
No molesting?
No, you take your time to the point where then you get into maybe a longer-term relationship where you try and fuse sex and love together and all that stuff. And then it might be more sustainable. Right, and you'll be happier, maybe.
God.
Who knows? Anyway,
there's something in this.
There could be something in it. And your ego is your sense of self that results from this amalgamation or this interaction between the adult and child self, which in transactional analysis is much more obvious. In certain situations of stress, we regress to the child part of ourselves. In other situations, we go into the parent mode.
Got it.
Most of the time, we're in a healthy adult state.
And we don't. I mean, the parent mode doesn't literally mean our life as a parent of children. It means as a leader at work or
where the
we've got to take a leadership role.
Yeah, where the transactional analysis comes in is where you might be not realise it, but you're in an intimate relationship with someone, a romantic relationship, and you're acting like the parent and she's acting like the child, and it's making both of you unhappy. And where you should be is an adult.
What, in a relationship? Oh yeah, because you're both adults.
Ideally.
What about with your children?
Well, that's different, isn't it? Because then you should be parenting.
I've recently gone through an interesting thing where my son has transitioned into adulthood, so the relationship shifts
to adult,
and there's a transition state.
But it's
where
allowed
are
to
you
move.
giving him advice and being a parent or not? And of course, I'll never not be his parent, so it's an interesting dynamic. But
it's a changing dynamic, and it's not necessarily unhealthy. I think when people come for therapy, it's because they've got these entrenched roles that they can't get out of, and then they find a way of changing the script or whatever. They're acting out a play where they're the parent and the other person is the child, or vice versa, and they're stuck in that rather than it being more fluid. So if you're sick, you got flu, you become the child for a while, and let your partner be the parent.
If only.
Chance to be a fine thing.
So tell me something. We might be coming full circle here, or at least to some sort of conclusion. I think what I'm hearing, tell me if I'm right. So whether you fully subscribe to Freud or not, I do quite like the super ego id model. It's kind of cool, and I understand it more now. Are you saying that if you can use this model to sort of analyze problems which might seep out, for want of a better phrase, into depressive type symptoms? Is that where we're getting to?
The more we ignore the difficulties inherent in mastering our ids, our repressive desires, the more likely we are to end up in depression. I guess you could argue that. Post-Freudians like Anna Freud would say, okay, so what we do is rather than ignore these primitive drives, we sublimate them. So we express them in artwork or through festivals or through socially acceptable ways of displaying sexuality.
Anna Freud as in Sigmund's daughter?
Yeah.
No way, man. That's cool.
So that was basically our episode on Sigmund. I think perhaps we need to do a summing up, Oliver.
Yes, probably. Let's forget the eels for starters, right?
And the little hands, and actually we didn't even cover penis envy, but that's silly as well.
Yeah, well, you're the only man to suffer from it.
That's true.
I have to say that's a Woody Allen joke, but I thought well executed.
God, your second knob gag fitted into one shortcut. Anyway, I think what can we say about
well,
Sigmund?
I'd say that although we've had a bit of a laugh at Sigmund's expense, there is something to early psychiatry that can be brought into modern times. And in terms of trying to work out what it is from your childhood which might have caused you anxiety, which might have led to depression. But a lot of it has been debunked. But you throw the baby out with the bathwater at your peril. And I remember asking you the question, is he a hero or a villain to you? And I think you gave a very good balanced answer, and that he's both, really.
Yeah, well, I think Sigmund, what he gave us was an understanding of how the unconscious mind works. There definitely is an unconscious influence over our decisions in life and our partner choices, perhaps, and how we transfer past relationships into the present, which can cause, if those past relationships were toxic in some way, then we need to address those. We need to understand those in the present.
Yeah, the thing I learned is that something horribly traumatic, particularly in your childhood, when I suppose you're vulnerable to trauma, can have echoes into your adult life. And I think that's partly what Sigmund was trying to say, in between trying to
potty train his children
and sex eels.
See you next time.
Bye for now.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Why the Long Face. As ever, we're here to inform, hopefully, and entertain, but we're not here to give you medical advice. There is, however, information on our website, ytlf.com, that's whytlf.com, about where to get help. See you next time.